Hi there, this is Pranay from DPS Diary. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on the geographic location. I hope you are doing great today. So, this is continuation to my session that I have recorded. So, here we are going to cover devices, databases, okay. Then we'll also cover the extension of databases, okay, or database, and segment. Segment is something which is very important, we should all know, especially when you are going to deal with DB, and then how do we create the scan workspace and text workspace and all that we'll cover in the upcoming session. So and also we'll cover DB options, and then what are the meanings of that, and when should we really turn them on for databases. Okay, so let us start. So this topic is devices, databases, segments, database extension, DB options, and its significance. Okay, so let me start the recording. I have the lab ready. Okay, so I have prepared list of command that we are going to cover in this session, and then we'll see how it actually works. Okay, so before starting anything, let me show you that I have one server installed here, Sybase server ASC. So you see that ASC1 is a server name which is currently running on my lab. Okay, so then what we'll do, we'll log into this server ISQL -s ASC1 USA -w, and then let's input the password. So as you know, by default it will go to database master, right? Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll start with device, because unless you have device you can't create a database, because it has to have a physical storage, right? So physical storage you can create only after you initiate a device. Now database will be there having two parts. So one is data and one is log. Okay, data is actually nothing but the actual storage of tables or anything that you have, right? So table, view does not have its own existence, but it is dependent on the underlying table, right? And then you have stored procedure, function, all that. This does not have data, but this will have some attribute. So even all those things will be stored. Now if you think about stored procedure which is thousands in line, so that will still have some size. It could be in kbs or maximum in mbs, but then it still has some storage, right? That has to be stored. So now what I'm going to create is I'm going to create a database which is called labdb, and then I am going to create, before creating database, I will create the data file. Okay, this is the logical name and this is the physical name, and then I am allocating the size of 100 MB for data, okay, and 20 MB for log. Okay, so before doing that, so let's see what all device we have. So sp_help device is the command that you have to run to see which all devices are currently there already on this particular server. So you see master, then ship system dev, and user db. So I already have a database which is user db. So you see there are two devices, user db underscore data and user db underscore log. So basically if you go and run the command, and if you want to find out the attributes of one device, then you can do user db underscore data, and then you will get all the attributes of this device. Okay, so you see what is the physical location, okay, which all things are there, what is the size, okay, what is the free size, okay, and you can see all that, and when it is actually created. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to create one device which is for the data of labdb. Okay, so disk init is the command that we use to initiate the device. Okay, so let's run that. Okay, so this is created. So now if you want, you can go sp_help device and you can check lab_data, and you should have these all details. So you can see here now the complete size is 100 MB and free is also 100 MB, because nothing has been allocated yet. Okay, so if you see here in the previous one we had database name, size, and when it is actually allocated. Okay, so now database data is initiated. So we'll do here exactly same command. There is no difference in the initiation of data or log file. When we create database and we have to use the keyword log, that's when it will identify that it is actually going for log. So in some cases it is mixed, okay, that's not really best practice, but then you can find it in many at many clients place wherein data and log will be actually mixed, okay, but we should not really follow that. So we are going to create a separate data and device for data and device for log. Okay, so this is, let us see that. So again this is created, so you can find that using sp_help device and lab_log based on the logical name, right? So 20 MB is the complete size, and total it's free, 20 MB is completely free. Okay, now what we'll do is, now we'll create one database labdb, and we will allocate. So here we are going to allocate only 10 MB in the log out of 20 MB, and then 90 MB in data out of 100 MB. So we are going to keep 10 MB in both data and log, so that I could show you how do we actually alter database, how do we extend database, right? That is also part of our topic, right? So when you create database, you should be in the master database. If you be in the different database, let me show you. So let's run this command, create database. Okay, so it should be there in the master database. Okay, you can't create a database after being in some user database. You should be in the master. So now let us put that command, and now you will see the database labdb will be created having device data file at 90 MB and log file at 10 MB. And labdb is now online, right? So now what we will do is, now you can check what all segments we have. Yes, because segment is again we are going to cover in this topic. So sp_help segment you can do. Let's use the database first, use labdb. Okay, sp_help segment. Okay, so what do we have? So by default you will have 3 segments in every database. That will be system, then you will have log, and then you have default, right? So this is by default. So it will be 0. I mean, if you see here, segment ID 0, 1 and 2. That is what will be there in each and every database, right? Now if you want to check anything, sp_help segment. So let's check like log segment, how it works. So you will see what all things we have. So you see used pages are 11, and then free pages this much. So this is what it is there. Okay, 10 MB. So how will you calculate the page size or in terms of MB? That also you can find out. So you can do select at max page size, right? So this is 4K, is default that I have chosen. And then if you want to know like how much it is, so select total page, so which is 2560, and each page is 4096, right? So into 4K divide by what is the conversion from KB to MB, that is 1024, right? So if you do that, you should get what is the size of device. Okay, so here max page size is important. This is something which is not part of the topic, but I explained you so that you can use this formula to find out how much is the actual space and how much is remaining. This is very handy when you have to deal in the pages and not in the MB. There are some online websites you can just enter and you will get it, but this is the way you can calculate yourself. Okay. Okay, so this one is done. Now we have showed you. Now let's go to default segment, sp_help segment. Okay, default. So here if you see all this table, which is system defined table or system tables, will be there on the default database, default segment. Okay, so you can see all that. So which is having attributes. I think we have covered about system tables, right? So you see sys comments, then you have sys references, sys user messages. Okay, so all that will be here. Okay, and it will also give you the size. So log lab_data 90 MB. Okay, this is about the default segment, right? Okay, so we are clear until now. So now what we will do is, now we are going to alter database. Now what we need to do is, we need to extend the database. So as I mentioned before, so out of 100 MB data, I did allocate only 90 MB. I didn't allocate a complete 100 MB, right? So that is what was appearing here. If you see, the default is 90 MB, right? That also you can see sp_help db and then lab db. If you do, so you will see that this is actually 90 MB of lab data, which is actually data only, which is the default segment, and then 10 MB, this is for the log, right? So now we are going to extend it. So this is helpful. Suppose you want to restore database of 20 MB from production to here, and the size that you are currently having is 90 MB data and 10 MB log. So you need to match the size, right? So in the production, if it was 100 MB and 20 MB, so you need to ensure that the same size is also there on the test or on the non-prod, right, where you are going to restore database. So let us extend this by 10 MB. Okay, so you should be again in the master database, okay, alter database, and that is actually already there, lab_data having 10 MB free space. That's why I was able to allocate. If not, then I need to create a new device, and then only I can allocate. So physical device is must, then only I can allocate the space in my database, right? Okay, now if you do sp_help db lab db, so then you will see that we will have lab data 90 MB before, and now again lab data is there, which is 10 MB, right? So this is how it works. Now this one we did extend for data file, right, which is for the default segment. Now what we'll do is we'll extend for the log. So in case of log, we need to use the keyword log. For data, nothing is needed, but for log, you should use the keyword log. Same is the case when you create a database. Okay, so since we have the space, so we can go ahead and we can use that. Okay, so this is there now. So now if you do sp_help db lab db, you will have the size of 120 MB, right? 120 MB is the DB size. Out of that, data only is 100 MB, and then log you have 10 MB and 10 MB, which is 20 MB. Okay, so far so good. Now what we'll do is, now we'll go to the next part. Okay, now we are going to talk about the segment. Okay, so as I already showed you, we have three segments, which is default, system and log segment, right? Now we are going to create a new device, and then we will create a new segment. Okay, so let us create one device, physical device. Let's initialize the device of the name seg_device and create this with the size of 5 MB. Okay, so let us do that. So you should be in the master. We are already in the master. Okay, so now sp_help device, if you see seg_device, so this is actually created. Okay, so 5 MB is there and free space is 5 MB. Now what we need to do is, if you want to use that, so you have to allocate that device into the LabDB database, and then we'll create segment on that, right? So let us alter database one more time. So now it will become 125 MB. Out of that, 100 MB was actually for data, 20 MB for log. Now it will become 105 MB for data and 20 MB for log. Okay, it is extended. Now if you do sp_help db lab db, and you will see that it is actually 125 MB, as I mentioned before. And then seg_device, it is data. Now if you do sp_help segment, right, you should use the database. So let's, okay, no, not this, actually we need to be in the database, right? So reset, use labdb. Okay, and now sp_help segment. So until now the segment is not created. So you can see still there are three segments, which is the default ones. Okay, now what we'll do, now we'll create this new segment in the LabDB database. So the syntax for that is sp_add segment. Okay, this is the device name, new_seg. This is what we have created just now. Okay, new segment that we are going to create, and this is the name of the device that we have created. Okay, this is a segment name. So segment name is new_segment. Okay. So now if you do sp underscore help segment, what you will have is you will have one more segment here, which is new underscore seg, right? Okay. Now what we will show is we are done with the segment creation, right? Now what we will do, we will create one table just to ensure that where actually how it works. So if you do not specify, I mean, this is something similar to file group in MS SQL. If you know about the file group, how it actually works, so this is similar to that, not exactly there, but similar to that. Okay. So now we can create a table on one specific segment. Okay. So actually how it works in the real environment is you can define multiple segments and then you can logically divide them. So something like any table which is larger than 5 GB, that should go into this segment. Any table which is smaller than this much size, it should go in this segment, or alphabetically from A to M it should be in this segment, N to Z it should be in different segments. All that it could be used. Okay. So that way you can actually logically divide and also physically divide at the device level. So this is actually helpful when you want to do the parallel operation. So you are actually using different mount point for storing different tables, right? It will not all go to default segment. So if you don't use the segment name, it will go to default segment. We'll see that as well. Okay. So create table on this one. So now if you see sp underscore help segment, okay, and then use new underscore seg, right? So what we will see here is we will see that this table name, right, seg underscore test is actually is there on our segment. Okay. So you can see that segment name status device and then objects on segment new underscore seg. So this is seg underscore test is what table. Now what if we create just one table without giving any specific no segment name, right? So now if you create like that, okay, so where it will go? It will go to default segment. So now if you see sp underscore help segment, okay, default, okay, so you will see that the test table is here. It has not gone to your new underscore seg. Okay, seg underscore test is there on the new underscore seg, but not the new table test is not actually on this new segment, right? So help segment I have already showed you. You can also do something like you create an index on the test table. Test is actually there on the default segment, right? But you can create index on this table and you can specify that it should go to new underscore seg. So even that way you can do. So tables will be in one segment, indexes will be on different segment. That also you can do. Okay. So let's go and do that. Okay. So now if you do sp underscore help segment, okay, and new underscore seg, so you will see that there are two objects now. Okay. One is this seg underscore test and then test table, but the index is actually here. The index ID is 2. How the index ID is there, that I have already covered. So you can go through that session and you can understand that. Okay. So this is about the segment. Okay. So actually what you can do is even the existing device that we have added, right, the lab underscore data, even that you can actually create a new segment and you can give some different name, right? Even that is possible. Okay, now we will talk about, so I hope it's all clear. So we talked about initiating device, right? Then how it is linked with the logical name, physical name. Then how do we create database having default segment, log segment and system segment, right? This is something which comes automatically without you doing anything. And then how the object when you create it goes to default segment by default, right? Then we talked about the log segment. So how it is there, how do we calculate the space? So anything that we do in the database which is not committed yet, okay, will be in the log segment. Okay. And then again depends, like DB option that we will cover, so which is trunk log on checkpoint, and then how do we take the backup of log backup. So log backup we will actually clear the space in the log, right? So all that will be there. So now what we'll do, sp underscore db option, if you see db option, So there are so many options available for database. So we will not cover all of them. So I have prepared a list of things which actually we should know. These all are the ones that actually we generally use in our day-to-day life. Okay, not all of them we use, but if you want to know, you can just find on the info center site and you have all the detail. Okay, so abort, run on log full, this is something which we advise not to use. Okay, by default it is not enabled. So what does it do is, if it is enabled, if it is not enabled, so when the log is full, if you are not taking the log backup, then the transaction will go into suspended state. If you enable this, then those transactions which has been committed after the log is full, that will not be available, they will be aborted. Okay, so it will actually break your log sequence and all that will be there. Then allow incremental dump. So allow incremental dump is actually very useful when you take the differential backup or cumulative backup. If you do not have this enabled, you cannot take cumulative backup. Okay, so once you enable this, then you need to take the full backup before you really are able to take the cumulative backup. Okay, allow nulls by default. So this is in accordance to NC standard. Okay, so when you don't specify anything, it will take null by default. Okay, DBO use only. So this is actually for the maintenance operation or maintenance mode. So if you are going to do some operation on database and you don't want others to access, you can put in the DBO mode. So that will actually database will be accessible only to those who are actually having DBO role. If not, they will not be able to use it. Then there is something called full logging. So full logging for alter table, full logging for reorg rebuild, full logging for select into, right? So ideally or generally, without you enabling, these all operations will be minimally logged. So they don't really log everything. However, if you enable any of them like alter table or reorg rebuild or select into, then the complete log will be maintained and that will not break your log sequence. But the side effect is, if you enable them all, then you need to have a lot of space in the log segment, because you are going to log everything, right? And the good thing about this is, if you enable it, then you don't need to take the full backup again in between of the activity, and log sequence will be maintained. So this is good thing, and the side effect is, as I mentioned, you need to have more storage. Read only. So this is something you do, or you keep some database which is on the standby server, so you keep on the read in the read only mode. Select into bulk copy or PLL sort. So this one we have already covered when we do the change of locking scheme, or if we do BCP in. So at that time this should be enabled. If it is not enabled, it will not be able to perform those operations. Single user. So this is something similar to DBA use only, but then here in the DBO, all the login which is having DBO role can access database. However, in this case, only one login can access it. And then, as I mentioned before, like trunk log on checkpoint. So trunk log on checkpoint means after every checkpoint, the log will be truncated. That's the default option that we should do if you are not scheduled the log backup. If you have disabled that, then you should have the log backup in place. Otherwise, your log will keep on growing, and at one point of time, your database will become will go to log suspend state and it will not be accessible. Okay. So this is about the devices, database creation, extension, and then DB options, and also about the segment. Okay. So I hope this helps, and do let me know in case of any comment or any concern or any question. Okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye.